I am delighted to have a colleague and dare I say friend, Monique Hart, the Chief Information Security Officer of Piedmont Health, here with us today on Journey of a CISO. Monique, thank you so much for saying yes. I know how busy you are, and I know that today's a tough day to break away from your activities, but I truly appreciate you showing up today and being with us today here at Cisco for this journey of a CISO series.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. And you know that I love talking shop with you all the time. So, yeah.
I do. I do. So let's get right into it, Monique. The story of someone's personal career journey can be very inspiring. And we believe that a lot of new and aspiring CISOs are going to watch this video. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to the role of Chief Information Security Officer?
Sure. I'd be happy to. But I think it's important to start with this wasn't a journey I set out for. In fact, you know this, Pam, the role didn't exist when I first entered the workforce. And in fact, when I first entered the workforce, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I, while in university the first time around, I actually decided to go for engineering. I love solving puzzles, and I figured that was the best way to go. Um, when I started my career, I didn't even, the roles that I took had nothing to do with IT. In fact, what brought me to Georgia had nothing to do with IT or even engineering itself. I came to Georgia because I had a skill set that the company who hired me needed at the time, and that was the ability to translate languages. So as far away from IT as you could get. But it turned out, just so that we're on the same page, that company was MCI when Georgia was a telco state, right? And they started to dive into the dot-com era during that time. And because of the classes I had taken in engineering and the skills that I had learned around programming, they offered me a position in that space. And we're even more excited about the fact that I could take it into other countries since I was able to speak different languages. So it was new, it was exciting, and it was scary. But after that, I met a fellow colleague that said, "Hey, what about this space in IT? You could take a couple classes and learn." And I did. I learned how to build a computer, build a server, and eventually build a network, and started working in everything from desktop support to LAN WAN administrator, firewall engineer, and then I had a leader in the first official security team I was made aware of that said, "Why aren't you in security?" And I said, "I don't know. Why am I not in security? What is it that I have that I can help you with, and what do you need from me?" Um, and a funny story about that was that he kept asking me about ISS. He said, "Do you know ISS?" And everybody knew ISS at the time. Of course, yes, I know ISS. And we're in the middle of the interview, and he goes, "You know what? I think I meant to say IIS." But luckily, I made it on board and I started in security. And then shortly after that, because one of my passions is watching the light bulb go off around people around me and helping them learn, I was tapped on the shoulder and asked if I would be willing to become a leader. So I started being given responsibilities, no titles, just responsibility. You're going to lead that person. You're going to manage this group over here. And CISO didn't exist yet, right? So throughout those years, I started in many different groups from what we consider transport security today and engineering, all the way to developing the first GRC team, and then eventually coming to this role that we can still say is being developed today, right? There are a lot of different people out there who are performing these functions that don't necessarily have Chief Information Security Officer, depending on the organization. So still developing, still growing, still seeing where this role can go. But this is how I came. I had the fortunate opportunity to have experiences in different areas that I think make being in this position a lot stronger.
There's so many things out of that answer that I hope people take away. Like, the role didn't exist. I led without the title. That's something that I really stress to people. Like, people look for leaders who are leading without the title. And that is such a strong statement. And then watching the light bulbs go off, Monique, that that teaching ability that you have, that advisement and that mentor is so crucial for our industry. And I want to thank you for that because I don't hear that a lot, but I'm so glad that you called that out. Just amazing. And we're lucky to have you in our field. I love your non-traditional path, and I think that that's going to resonate with a lot of people. Um, so what's the biggest challenge or challenges that you face as a CISO right now? And if you want to throw in the latest craze around chat GPT and generative AI, that's certainly something that a lot of people are talking about right now.
Woo, that's another wrench. um, you know, there's a lot going on. We're just getting through a pandemic. I'm in healthcare. So I think most, when they think about the pandemic, they think about when we were asked to go into quarantine. But in healthcare, we were experiencing the pandemic before that quarantine announcement came to fruition, right? At least for the United States. And so during that time, all of our organizations were very similar in that healthcare always had this impression that everything had to be done from the brick and mortar. Every employee comes in, there isn't a way to do it remotely, very shy off of other solutions like cloud. And pandemic forced us to change. There was positive and negative. Definitely positive in that we see we can do it today, and it helped other areas that help our patients grow, like telemedicine. But with the change also came economical changes, right? Supply chain issues, legislative changes, demand for privacy. So it's let's make things a little bit looser while making it harder for us to get that job done because we want to make certain no matter what we're securing. And it's really difficult. You think about it like when the pickle jar is stuck. You got to get in there to get the pickles. You can't close every door. Um, Otherwise, you're not going to get that nourishment that you need. And we have to think the same way in security. But in security, the first thing a security officer thinks about is that triad: confidentiality, integrity, availability, right? In healthcare, it's very, very hard to put one above the other. When you have policies and regulations saying to do that, think about it from this perspective. Integrity is extremely important here. That's the data that our clinical staff uses to make certain that they are doing everything correctly for the patient's health, right? So that data has got to be perfect. Availability, seconds count. If you're on that operating table, you don't want to hear that a computer's not working. Not milliseconds can cost a life, right? So you got integrity, availability, and confidentiality. Patient want to know, they want to know that their information is being protected. They're not going to be humiliated by whatever they've been diagnosed with. No one is going to know their information that they're not willing to share with, or worse yet, take their identity and then prevent them from getting any kind of services they need, even outside of healthcare. So today's challenges have become, I just say it's exponential, especially with the change in all of those script kiddies on the internet lately with the pandemic. But Chat GPT, that's a whole nother wrench in, and you just gave the ability at everybody's fingertips to create whatever they want from a source of questionable truth. If you think about it, ChatGPT is using the internet as its library. So, how much can we trust whatever it helps to develop? And we know that people are using it for bad today. We already know that they're using it to create malware. So, whole nother area.
Yeah, it is a hot topic right now. I love that you brought the triad into the conversation. I haven't heard a CISO to date do that in this journey. Not that they don't think about it. It's just the way that you articulated against your vertical was very clear and concise. I really enjoyed that. So thank you for that. So, what's different about your role now versus 2 years ago or even 5 years ago pre-pandemic?
Well, we definitely had to learn to pivot. 5 years ago, there was an outline. If you're thinking if you have forethought and you're thinking about what you need to develop and where you should focus your attention, you have an outline, and much hasn't changed about that process. You really need to not only consider where your gap findings are today, where they have been identified, but also how the industry, technology, and policies and regulations are changing so that you can be prepared for those. Right now, what's really changed is how quickly ChatGPT has come to the forefront. How many individuals are now becoming excited, and how organizations, one, there's a lot of good with it. So I don't want anyone to think or walk away as, oh my God, it's bad. They have malware. There's bad and good in everything, right? We want to look at this to help us develop and create technology and solutions for the future, right? But we have to know how to protect it. And with the pandemic allowing or forcing so many of us to become comfortable with the internet, whether we knew or know what we're doing or not, it certainly piqued the interest of a lot of groups out there that don't have good intentions in mind. And their focus, you have to think about this. How ethical are they? How moral are they when they know they're attacking a healthcare organization and there could be a patient on that other line? That there seems to be no empathy there whatsoever. So, what we've seen over the last couple of years is uptick in the targeted attacks specific to healthcare. Before, we could look at ourselves as a victim of someone else's compromise because we weren't ready, because our machines were behind and maybe the patching wasn't there and the infrastructure wasn't there. Now it's deliberate. You know that they are definitely targeting this space. So we have to look at security as a part of the business. And that's the positive that's come out of this. The leaders of the organization and the boards are no longer looking at security as just an IT function, but how is it working today to help maintain the business and ensure that the business is still going towards the goal that was defined.
Yeah. Well, I talk about this with my colleagues and friends that, and I heard this once that hackers have a mind for discovery or a mind for figuring out what's possible. And they don't ask what does it do, they ask what it can do, right?
Right.
What can I make this do? And I thought that was brilliant because we're constantly riddled with compliance, industry standards, patching, all of the health checks that we have to provide on the security side. Hackers, they're not riddled with all of that work.
Yeah.
They're focused on one thing, getting in. So well said. Really like that
Getting in
answer
and
as
taking
well.
whatever they can. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's move on to a different subject. How are you fostering a culture of diversity and inclusion on your security team? And Monique, when I come across a female CISO or a diverse candidate in the space, I'm usually am begging them to come on this to just get the word out there that there is a place for women and diversity in this field. And so I can't thank you enough for coming on today because I think that it resonates with the young women out there to see you in your spot. So how do you foster that culture of diversity and inclusion?
And we certainly want to see more of them in this industry, right? Um, that's a great question. I I mentioned earlier that I originally went to school for engineering. So I definitely know what it's like to be the only one in the room, walk in the room, and everyone looks the same, sounds the same, responds the same, and has the same answer, right? What fun is there in that? And how much do you learn? And how long can that be sustainable? You know, what I do, or what we try to do here, is encourage my team to not look for individuals that mirror them, look for different backgrounds and culture. As a Latin American woman with my own experiences, right? I definitely have a different perspective on how to be able to get into the pickle jar, how to open that up, right? Than your average person that comes in and just twist the lid. And it's very important that we learn to adapt and take on those, appreciate those differences to help make things a little bit easier and maybe even more creative. Not be afraid to look outside of the norm. For example, every industry I've ever worked for, the first question they say during an interview, or the first thing you look for on the resume is, do they have experience in that particular industry? This is one of those unique specialties where we are industry agnostic. It's important for us to know what the business needs are in order to support the business, but our skill sets can be done anywhere. So I look for individuals who not only have healthcare experience, but don't have healthcare experience. I can teach you healthcare, right? If you're willing to learn and you are willing to teach me something new, a new way of thinking about how to do our job and protect our patients. Does that help?
Oh yeah, I love that answer. Number one, because you said something that I hope people heard, which is, what can you teach me? And a leader that is open to being taught, I think, are some of the most formidable leaders out there. And then the second thing you said is industry agnostic, and I talk about this a lot, Monique, and I'm just loving that you agree with me on this. Like there are some people that want vertical specific information, which I totally understand.
Mhm.
And we measure ourselves against our peers in terms of maturity assessments. And then we have different North Stars to reach beyond current peers, so to speak, or not. But what I love about that is you're learning from different industries, and I think that's super important. I think we can learn from each other, and we can be industry agnostic. Great answer. So it's extremely important to have the attention of the business, as you know. How do you foster communication with other groups in your organization and get them to buy in to embracing security, really building that security conscious organization?
Very carefully. Definitely a lot of conversation, communication. I was fortunate enough to take a leadership course recently that talked about the dynamics of your team. It's interesting, as leaders, we tend to think about the people who report directly to us a lot of the time. But honestly, first and foremost, your team is your peers. That's your very first team, right? Having that conversation, making certain that what you are trying to convey is relatable and that you can empathize and understand what it is that their focus is and area of responsibilities are, and that you're coming together to work on aligning the goals so that you're not necessarily creating redundancy or stepping over each other, but more importantly, um, trying to build something together outside and not create silos, right? Especially in security. Security cannot perform a lot of the things that need to be completed on its own. Our people, everybody here is a member of security. They are the first and last line of defense. And having those conversations that help them understand what their relevance and importance are is crucial to being successful and doing it in a way where it's understood. For example, I'm not going to go in there and talk about protocols and different policies. I'm going to remind you why it is you protect your own home, why you put a door on the front of your house and then decide to put a lock on it and also an alarm system, and then help you understand how that relates to maybe a password or multi-factor authentication. And then with our peers, make certain that they have the ability to help us as much as we want to be able to help them.
I like that. So use relevant analogies that are relatable to people outside of our industry. It's key to that conversation is storytelling. It sounds like you use storytelling, which I love.
Yes.
Um, fantastic, fantastic. I don't know where we would be without storytelling these days. So, tell us about the conversation with your board. How do you measure success and inform them? And what information is your board looking for as it relates to security in your organization?
This one, that's a good question, Pam. I think a lot of people come to me, peers, and they ask in the industry, they say, what KPIs do you use? Like, well, you know, first and foremost, your boards, your senior executive team, they just want to know, are we protected? Are we doing everything possible to prevent whatever news, breaking news they've just seen, or article they just read, or information they heard from a partner about how the other organization has been down and now they're either paying a fine or worse yet, closing altogether, right? How do we avoid, or are we doing everything? How do we have those things in alignment? That's what the board really wants to know. So I think one of the things I do is have those discussions that first we're acknowledging what we're seeing happen across the globe. And then I speak about what we've put in place to help prevent that or what help we need in order to make certain we can prevent it. Practice that tabletop exercise. Our leadership team here is invited, well, we make it mandatory for the senior executive team at least once a year to go through a tabletop exercise. And we certainly invite board members if they want to be included in those exercises to help make certain we have preparedness. Uh, When you walk into a senior team, I know there's groups that speak about the number of vulnerabilities and what they've done to patching, but a lot of times that leaves an area of ambiguity and individuals walk away either not understanding where you are from a risk perspective or just, you know, completely unsure. And that's one of the things that I advise anyone who asks me, make certain they understand where you are and your ability to protect your organization off of what's going on or what could happen.
Yeah, I think you said it well, a balance between your maturity and your strategy and the risk of your organization.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Which is very complicated. Our business is not a simple one to describe, and to describe it in simplistic terms is an art, I think. So, again, storytelling as well. I think that's important. Okay. What qualities do you seek out or value in a security partner?
When I am working with a vendor or a partner, I really want to know that they understand the company, my culture, what our goals are, and that we have the same focus. One of the first things I look for is not only do you understand what our needs are, but that your security practices align with my organization's expectation of security practices, right? There've been there's a lot of partners, small, large, and what we see today is that there are some out there that focus on supporting this space, but haven't necessarily concentrated on how they protect their own space. And we know that we could definitely be indirectly impacted or directly impacted by their vulnerability. So, first and foremost is what have you done that aligns with what we've done over here? Have you done something better maybe that I can learn from? And how is it that you can help my business continue to function?
That's a great answer. Okay. Last question. We're in the home stretch. I'm sad to say that because I love talking to you. If you could go back to your younger self and give her a piece of advice, what would you say? And what would you say to the next generation of security professionals?
Mm, that's a good question. Um, I think I tell my younger self, don't be afraid to go after something you don't know every aspect of, right? Step out there and network and ask for help. Work with your partners. Work with your part. That is a huge lesson. Work with the partners. Help ask the partners to help you make it go farther. Um, I think the other part of that question is what would I tell security professionals today? I would tell them don't limit themselves. Um, Security has a lot of doors. You don't have to be a coder or a forensic expert in order to do security. Um, their their uniqueness and their differences probably help in a lot of different roles that they don't hear about. So do your research, go out there, join some organizations that focus on security and network, volunteer, and don't focus so much on the title, but what the responsibility brings so that you can learn.
I um I couldn't agree with you more. You nailed that last question. If you want to just know, Monique, you and I are so much alike. I'm not a Latina though. I wish I was. You have some spice, and I love it. Um, Perfect answer. Thank you, Monique, for doing this today. I think your interview is going to be seen as one of, our best. I think you have a lot of great experience and a very non-traditional path that I hope people see and are inspired by. But I can't thank you enough for being here today. And when I'm back home, we'll get together.
I'd love that. Thanks for having me. I'm glad that I could be a part of this and I hope it does help. So thank you.